Hi, good evening and welcome. It's 6 p.m. and I call to order the February 24th, 2025 meeting of the Papillion-La Vista Community Schools. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please note that the Open Meetings Act is published at the front door, and there are no changes to the agenda tonight. So roll call, please.
Mr. Madler.
Here.
Ms. Witt.
Here.
Mr. Lotus.
Present.
Ms. Wood.
Here.
Mr. Bailey.
Here.
Ms. Butler.
Here. All present, thank you. Section 2, Communications. We have a military advisor, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Anderson from the 55th Wing Support Squadron. Good to see you again.
Hello. Welcome, Colonel.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to brief a status update for you guys tonight. First, congratulations on the district-wide designation as Purple Star Schools. The first time I was able to come talk to you guys, I told you that was like a passion project for me, a little bit of a goal, and getting across the finish line and seeing that was really cool. So congratulations. It'll definitely further establish the district as a district of choice for military families as our PCS in Offutt. That's something that families do look at to go through and say, hey, what's that military friendliness? What's a transition for my kids? How do we go through and interact with the community? So big win for the district and Offutt. And I'm proud to say that I'm a Purple Star parent now, so thank you. April is the month of the military child. We are standing by to support wherever you guys need us. So if you're looking for clap-ins, assembly help, wherever Offutt can go through and support that month of the military child in April, please let us know. Jenny and Tina, our school liaison officers, are standing by for that. With our school liaison officers, they'll be hosting our kindergarten readiness workshop this week, Thursday at 16:30 at Offutt Event Center. And that's for any families that are going through and having a new kindergartner in any of the schools that serve Offutt Air Force Base. So really good opportunity to just make that first connection. A lot of excited parents, a lot of excited kindergartners. I believe Papillion-La Vista is going to be there with us, so it'll be exciting to see you guys there on Thursday night. Last week, we had a pretty nasty cold snap. My wife is very happy you guys opened up on Friday. She was getting a little stir crazy with the kids. Offutt, unfortunately, was able to stay open, so I had to leave her each day to brave the cold. But really cool response just to see from the district going through and taking care of the kids, and Offutt being able to go through and service our youth center, our school age, and just making sure that the community and the mission still kept running. We're in the final preparations for our April exercise. That's our big one, 31 March to 4 April. Testing our combat readiness of how do we go through and take the fight to the enemy, while also seeing how Offutt Air Force Base will respond to a large-scale threat. So we expect to see some interruptions to the base, some gate closures. We expect to see just some general friction points you don't generally see during stateside base exercises. Colonel Klezak has made sure to tell to you all that we are not going to disrupt the kids to the max extent possible. Plans to get the buses in and out, plans to get people at extracurriculars, so there should be very little impact to the community, but I would not recommend coming during the day. You might have a little bit getting stuck around. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Jenny Miller. Can you stand up real fast? We are happy to say we have our second school liaison officer now. So we have Tina, who is our very, very wise continuity that's going to take care of Jenny, get her spun up, and this is just going to help out the community. Offutt services such a large metropolitan community of military-affiliated youth. We did the math, it's about 22 different districts, private schools, parochial schools. So having those two school liaison officers are really a resource for all of you and the district. Where you need them, we're here to serve and here to help out. If you need them in a district, you need them talking to people, please let us know, and we will be where we can get to help you guys out. Pending any questions, this is my update tonight. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, as always, for the briefing, Colonel. And for those board members that may not be aware, besides being a distinguished Air Force officer, he is a district parent. He has a third grader at Patriot Elementary, and he is very active at the PTO. So in addition to your military service, thank you for your service to the school district and the PTO. We're so pleased to have you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel.
The next section, reports, Superintendent.
Thank you very much, Ms. Witt, members of the board, and happy Monday, everyone. It's a lovely day, it's a lovely evening, and what a difference a week makes. I know the question that's on everybody's mind since last week is, so how much longer are we going to have to go back to school given all the snow and cold days that we've had? So that decision is not final. We will have some conversations with the board, but frankly, we want to wait a little bit because we may not be out of winter yet. This week looks pretty darn amazing, but it would not be unusual in Nebraska for us to have cold weather or snowy weather even well into March. So I'm sure you're probably aware, if you've looked closely at the school district calendar, that the board always builds 3 days into the calendar. The problem, of course, is we've already had 5 days. We've had 4 cold weather days and 1 snow day. 3 days last week. We had a snow day the week before, and the week before that we had another cold weather day. So we're definitely beyond what we built in, but to be blunt, the only 2 grade spans that we really get worked up about are our seniors because they already get out early, and our early childhood students. So again, Ms. Siri has already been crunching the numbers for us. We will discuss options when the board is ready to, but we really wanted to get through the next couple of weeks knowing how unpredictable Nebraska weather is, but we will certainly keep everyone apprised of the situation. Also wanted to congratulate a number of people for a couple of cool events. First of all, we had the Sub Appreciation Breakfast at Monarch last Monday, right when the snow was coming down. So kids were off last Monday, of course, for the President's Day. It was a professional development day for our staff. Dr. Settles, I didn't count the noses there, but I think Dr. Settles said we had between 70 and 100 subs that were there for, as its name implied, just an appreciation breakfast. And it was so great. Their attitudes were so great. I think they had fun. We did a little bit of training. But what was perhaps most impressive to the subs that were there is that Jason Ryan and an entire administrative team were out front shoveling snow as subs were coming in. So talk about other duties as assigned. Jason, thank you for being a true servant leader. That same day, Dr. Bell, Dr. Settles hosted the para conference. It's our second para conference of the year. We always host one first semester, one second semester. This one was at Papillion-La Vista High School. I was lucky enough to be invited to speak. It's just a wonderful opportunity, not only to get our paras together, but also to provide some high-quality professional development. We know that it is a somewhat unique thing. Other school districts across the state have started to copy this model, and that's always very flattering when other districts want to do what we're doing. But more than anything, it's just a great opportunity to recognize our staff and provide some professional development. On the legislative front, I won't share too much because Mr. Richards has an agenda item later on, but we are at day 31, so we're over a third of the way done with a 90-day session. We're continuing our weekly GNSA calls as well as our Wednesday calls with Tim Gay. Besides the briefing that Brett will give us later tonight, we will have Tim Gay come back, I think, in March. I think we were believing March 10th. Thank you, Mr. Richards. So we'll be keeping up to date with all that. On the HR front, we're continuing to fill some positions. We filled an assistant principal position at G. Stanley Hall. That will be official tomorrow morning. This individual has already accepted. We plucked a really talented person out of a neighboring district. We'll make a formal announcement tomorrow, but very pleased with that hire. And then Ms. Siri and I have our Cooperation Best interviews tomorrow afternoon. We have a number of candidates, both internal and outside, coming in to talk about Ms. Erickson's position. She is retiring at the end of the year. Huge loss for the district, but very excited to talk to the people that will be interested in replacing her. 2 others that are just kind of human interest, but if you would humor me. One had to do with a district grad. But we had a district graduate, Jackson Trout. He's a Papillion-La Vista South graduate. And I don't know how many of you around the room are baseball fans, but UNO was playing LSU, the LSU, longtime College World Series fixture, number 3 in the country. So the Mavericks go down to Baton Rouge and play number 3 LSU, pulled off a historic upset, 5-4, but here's how it happened, ladies and gentlemen. Jackson Trout, Papillion-La Vista South kid, put together a 3-run home run dinger, and that was the difference in the ball game. So not only is it really big that UNO goes down there and knocks off a perennial power in baseball, but the fact that it came at the bat of a Titan kid is pretty darn incredible. His mom, Jen Trout, works for Mr. Richards on the Buildings and Grounds department. So lots of district connections. As you might imagine, Jen Trout is absolutely bursting her buttons, proud of her son. Jackson, I doubt you're watching, but if you are, we're incredibly proud of you. And last but by no means least, we have a birthday boy in attendance, ladies and gentlemen. Our own Lieutenant Colonel Skip Bailey, I'm told turns 25 today, I believe, Colonel? 26 today, Colonel. Very good, very good. So we appreciate you spending your birthday celebration with us instead of Sherry tonight. Happy birthday, Skip. And with that, Ms. Wood, I would conclude my superintendent report.
Thank you, and happy birthday, Skip. And you will have plenty of time to spend your birthday with your wife. I will. Any other board member reports tonight?
Yes, I had the opportunity to do a few things. On February 11th, I attended the Teammates Board meeting, and the teammates continue to grow. I believe they're close to 80 matches that they have at this time, and there was a very rich discussion of the board of how they're going to continue to support and the growth of that, and so doing great work there. February 12th, the birthday boy and I were at the Maybe meeting, and along with representatives from Bennington, Bellevue, Elkhorn, and Ralston. And at that meeting, we had the opportunity to receive updates on a lot of legislation that's happening and what the State School Board Association is watching at this time. And also, you know, each of the districts does a little bit of sharing of what's going on in their districts. Also, I did attend the substitute conference. You know, I hesitated to go on that snowy morning, and then when I walked in and it was full of subs that were there, I guess a couple things came to mind. First of all, that we have wonderful subs, very dedicated to coming and learning, and also that Dr. Settles, Dr. Bell, and their team put together a conference that's worth coming to. You know, you don't come unless it's good, and so our folks came, and I had the opportunity to listen to Deb Anderson share some mental health with the substitutes, and very valuable information, not only talked about what's happening, why it's happening, but gave some suggestions on what to do when they find themselves in a situation of a child that might be experiencing some challenges. And then lastly, on Friday evening, I ended my week on a real high while I attended the elementary unified basketball game across the street at Papillion Middle School. Prairie Queen, G. Stanley Hall, Anderson Grove, and Golden all had teams participating. And what a wonderful opportunity to see our students supporting each other, demonstrating teamwork and cooperation, and just enjoying their time together. There was a good turnout of parents. And I did want to acknowledge, while I was there that night, I was told that our local Papillion Chick-fil-A provided food for all the athletes. So not only great family support, but again, ongoing support of our community members. And I believe that individual also is a parent in our district. So it was a great way for me to celebrate or see the kids celebrating their time together. So lots of great things happening.
Yeah, it was a good maybe meeting. We had a good group this time. I think the last time we met was a little short on people, but it was good. Additionally, Andy, you and I attended the foundation board meeting last Monday. Some really good stuff going on there. They're gearing up for everything they've got coming. This Thursday I'll meet with the teacher grant subcommittee, so we'll be hopefully passing out lots and lots of cash to the teacher grants. And then we've got, I think here I think it's next month, I will be meeting with the scholarship subcommittee, so start working on scholarships and what we're going to pass out for that. And I know the foundation's got a lot going on with their they start talking golf tournament in June, and then the gala already in August. So a lot of good things going on there. So that was a good meeting. Good to see everybody then. I also got to go to a unified basketball game. However, mine was at La Vista West, and I'll be awful. I can remember two of the schools. It was Ashbury and Carriage Hill, and I'm trying to remember who else was there. The other two schools, but it was amazing watching these kids. And what got me is that you have all of these, the special ed departments and their teachers and their workers working all day on Friday and then jumping into this Friday night, and they were just out there with the kids playing basketball and having a great time, and the kids were loving it. Parents and grandparents all over the place. It was fun to watch, someone make a basket and the entire parent section just go crazy, and of course the little kids jumping around. It warms your heart. So it was one of those things that I wasn't expecting. Sherry kind of came home and said, "Hey, we're going over there," and I was like, "Okay, absolutely." So But yeah, we enjoyed it, so I'm sure it was just as good. We did not stay all the way through, so I'm not sure if they got Chick-fil-A over there, but that sounds wonderful. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, so thank you.
I had a liaison lunch last week on Valentine's Day at Liberty Middle School. Talked about a number of topics, per usual with the staff there. Their show choir, they wanted to highlight their choir, their show choir, their band. I know we've talked about them in this meeting and these meetings before, how great of just the programs that they've been developing over there. We also worked through talking on the MAP growth, specifically special ed. I wrote this number down. They said when they got their latest MAP scores back, 80% of the special ed hit their MAP growth, which is for any cohort of students, 80% for hitting those growth targets is pretty impressive. So they wanted to highlight that. Then also with special ed, they talked through their concerns about what is happening at the state level and even federally on the fundings, and just making sure they wanted to voice just what they're seeing out there and making sure that we're also on top of it. Different, again, the Department of Education, but then also for the Nebraska Department of Education, and making sure that we're aware of some of the new rules and regulations that are coming down. That's just taking more time from our staff away from the students, and they just wanted to highlight. They wanted to highlight that, and then what I wanted to talk through was cell phones. So we're going to talk through the legislature. Well, one of the bills is that we need a new, potentially, if it gets passed, which it might be trending that way, but if it gets passed, every school district's going to need a new policy that prohibits cell phones. Probably a little more strict than what we have in our handbooks at our different schools. So I just want to talk to them about how big of an issue are cell phones in classrooms at the middle school level. And they said over this last summer, they worked with the other middle schools to implement kind of the similar handbook guidelines between all the three schools, the middle schools. And they said it's been much better this year than in previous years. So they didn't think that anything that we did at our level and policies that would be pushed down would probably be that different than what they're already doing. Now, depending on the final language of the bill, it might be more restrictive, with passing periods and lunches or before school, after school. But some of that's still TBD. But I was interested in understanding the cell phones in our schools, and I know I've got another liaison lunch coming up in a couple weeks. And I'm interested to hearing their thoughts too at Golden Hills. Obviously, elementary probably not as big of a deal, but as we have to start thinking about crafting our own policy, just getting that feedback from the staff was great to hear. And I just want to thank the staff for spending the time with me and Dr. Rickley and Mr. Richards and going through their topics.
And the lunch was lovely.
And the lunch was lovely. Yeah, lunch was lovely. No Chipotle, but lunch was lovely. My go-to.
All right, thank you for those reports. And again, happy birthday, Skip, Mr. Bailey. Next on our agenda are committee reports. We'll start with Building, Grounds, and Finance.
That one's me. We did meet also on Valentine's Day, February 14th. We talked through, we have the legislative update coming up later on in our agenda, but we also talked through the federal grants. If you remember when we went through the audit of our last year's audit, one of the issues was coming up, the cash balance was unexpectedly short at the end of the audit because of the federal grant that we did not get in. We did not get the reimbursement compared to prior years. So we did get, Mr. Richards went through, and we did get that reimbursement in. So it will hit then in this fiscal year. We also started talking through our summer projects for 2025. Summer's going to be here. before we know it, and just making sure as far as the building projects that we have them all lined up and ready to go. So talking about turf replacement, some playground resurfacing, those sort of items. And then we spent most of the time talking through the legislative update, which we will hear again shortly.
Thank you. Human Resources, Student Services.
Yes, we did meet since last meeting. Most of our focus is on the agenda item around certified staffing, as well as the legislative updates.
And Curriculum and Americanism.
Yes, we met Thursday, February 13th. Seems like forever ago. We talked a lot about the SIP visit and the exit report, went through that quite a bit, which was very good to see. Interesting that you always want to look at those exit reports and see what went well, because everybody likes to hear that, but it was also very interesting to see what their recommendations were, which I think those are just, if not more important than the kudos, because then we can figure out how we can get even better than what we are. So that was really good. We spent a lot of time talking about that. We went briefly over, talked a little bit about the book reconsiderations, that we still have a few books that are getting reviewed and how that process was going. And then we talked about program updates. It was basically our early childhood program review. It's largely complete, and talked more about what we were doing and how we were going to focus on the programs that we were focusing with that. And then finally, we talked at the end there about our new 5-year strategic plan, that planning process, talking about how that's going to go, how we're going to start that with the needs assessment, surveys, advisory groups, and then finally forming the advisory committee that goes with that. So, and I don't think we have another meeting scheduled yet, but so that'll be it.
Thank you. All right, moving on to Section 3, action items. Do we have a motion for action by consent?
I'll make a motion to approve the action by consent as written.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Madler. Roll call, please.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Madler?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item on the action item list is certified staffing, goal number 3, and that will be presented by
Me.
Dr. Rick.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Witt. Ordinarily, Dr. Settles would present this. Just on a personal matter, Dr. Settles' son Liam was designated the Team Jack honoree. And if you're not familiar with the Team Jack organization, they're the organization that was formed after Jack Hoffman, the young man that raced into Nebraskans' hearts everywhere. I think it was 2010-ish. Suffering from pediatric brain cancer. He participated in the spring game, and he famously ran for that touchdown. Jack passed away, sadly, just a few months ago. His dad also passed away from brain cancer. So it's been a very difficult year for the Hoffman family. In any event, they held a gala event in Lincoln just last Saturday, and Liam was honored for that, and will be honored again, I believe, at the Nebraska-Michigan basketball game tonight. So that's why Dr. Settles can't be here. She really wanted to be here, and I said, you need to be front side at the court accepting that award. That's good for everybody. So in any event, there have been no changes to the staffing proposal that Dr. Settles presented. So the community is aware. We did experience some additional student growth this year, but it wasn't significant enough to warrant widespread staff additions. We are recommending school psychologist growth in the area of 1.4 FTE. We are asking the board to approve some growth positions, 3.0 in general ed, 2.0 in special ed. That's very customary. It's down slightly from previous years, but traditionally we ask the board for budgetary authority for growth positions. Mr. Richards builds that into the budget, but very frequently we will not access it. In fact, I would say of the last 5 years, I think we've accessed those growth positions maybe once. In the case, though, that student enrollment outpaces our projections, we have those positions if we need it. And also, This isn't necessarily general fund supported, but we will be accepting some additional FTE through the learning community. There are several positions that the learning community grant that we applied for will go to support, including an early childhood facilitator, an attendance intervention social worker, and lit support interventionist. So it's a pretty static, it's a pretty minimal staffing request for 2025-26, but I would gladly answer any questions that the board may have.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-26 additions as proposed, including 1.4 FTE school psychologist of certified staff with an additional 5.0 FTEs allocated if needed for growth, and 5 FTE learning community grant positions.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Lotus and a second by Ms. Wood. Is there any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Medler?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Action item C, Policy 2000.
I will also take that one if that pleases the board. Ms. Witt, the Policy 2000, which deals with general administration. It is one of the smallest in terms of the length of the policy. It's one of the smallest in our policy catalog. We went through it. We didn't have any substantive changes from either legal counsel. We didn't have any specific asks from the board, so that we are recommending that it be accepted as written with no additional changes.
I'll move to acknowledge the review of Series 2000 board policies.
Second.
I have a movement by Mr. Madler and a second by Mr. Lotus. Is this a roll call event? Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Medler?
Yes.
Ms. Witt?
Yes,
Mr. Lotus?
Yes.
Motion carried.
thank you. We're moving on to Section 4, Discussion and Information Items. First item is School Resource Officer, and I believe Chief Whitted is here to make a statement.
For the opportunity to speak to yourselves and the rest of the board. I have some prepared remarks, but before I get to those, just full disclosure, this proposal is something that Deputy Chief Orchard and I have envisioned for some time, many years prior to this date now that we find ourselves at. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Lieutenant Jason Sharp and his assistance with me in meeting with Dr. Rickley and his staff about the benefits and the things that we'd like to see come from this position if it's so approved by yourselves. But, you know, it's easy to understand the partnership between the Papillion Police Department and Papillion List of Schools has been long. It's a model of success, I believe. And together we've built a foundation of trust, communication, and collaboration that prioritizes our students and staff's safety and well-being. I'm here to strongly support adding a school resource sergeant. This position is not just about adding a rank. It's about enhancing the structure, oversight, and communication that make our SO program even more effective. A dedicated sergeant will allow us to streamline operations, ensure consistency in our approach across all schools, and strengthen the daily collaboration between law enforcement and educators. Most importantly, this position will allow us to be more proactive, enhancing training, refining response strategies, and continuing to build positive relationships with students and staff. The role of our SROs is not just about enforcement, as I think you all know. It's about mentorship, education, and community building. With a school resource sergeant in place, I feel we can ensure that our shared commitment to safety remains strong, coordinated, and focused on our future, which we all know will continue to grow. We sincerely appreciate this board's support and your commitment to our department and the well-being of our schools. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but just know we feel really strongly about the benefits this might bring not only our department, but the school district as well.
I think Mr. Villarreal or Dr. Villarreal has some items to bring up as well, and then if there are any questions, Chief, just hang close by.
I will hang around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. V.
It helps if I turn it on. Got it. Thank you again, Chief Whitted, for sharing his remarks on behalf of Papillion Police Department. And to give you an overview from the district side, I'll be sharing with you a little bit about this position today. So the background is we currently have SROs at all of our secondary schools through primarily Papillion Police Department and also La Vista Police Department. At this time, the Papillion Police Department Investigative Unit Sergeant currently oversees 5 detectives as well as the 4 SROs, which I just lost my spot, my apologies, creates a significant span of control for one supervisor. So the City of Papillion is proposing adding this dedicated school resource sergeant position that would focus exclusively on the school resource officer program and allow for more specialized supervision and support. The purpose of this would be twofold, echoing what Chief Whitted said, enhancing the monitoring, evaluation, and supervision of the SRO team, but also supporting district safety and security initiatives. The cost-sharing proposal is a straight 50-50 split between the city and the district, and it would follow along with the 20-year interlocal agreement that we use in the MOU for our SRO program that we have in place now. Some high-level opportunities for enhancement with this position being added, supporting continued growth for the district, strengthening coordination across all jurisdictions that our district sits within, expanding presence at our elementary schools and our program facilities, including YATP and IDEAL, advancing threat assessment capabilities, and building upon our successful secondary school SRO program, as well as creating a leadership pathway within the SRO unit. And in the proposal, they detailed time allocations for the position. So these are the primary duties of the position ranked by time allocation, with 25% being dedicated to threat assessment team leadership, 20% focusing on that agency coordination and liaison work, serving as our primary connection with the different law enforcement agencies. The next 20% as school administrator support and district incident management team participation, 15% for SRO team coordination, 10% for presence in our elementary schools and program facilities, and finally 10% for professional development and planning. So this balanced approach across the pie chart here ensures that the supervisor can address both immediate needs as well as long-term plans. And we have a couple people here for questions. I can take questions. Dr. Rickley can take questions. Dr. Steele behind me has been heavily involved in our MOUs with our SRO programs, and Chief Whitted is here as well.
My most important question is, how did Officer Bamer show up in 2 pictures? Does he really rate 2 separate pictures? Really? No. I just want to, I'm sure the board will have questions. I just want to voice my support for this position. Chief Whitted and I have been talking about this for the better part of a year, maybe 18 months. One of the trends we're seeing across the country, one of the trends we're seeing across the state of Nebraska is school districts, both large and small, adding dedicated school safety positions. Sometimes it's former or retired sworn law officers, sometimes it's somebody with a background in law enforcement or military background. But in any event, we're clearly seeing a prioritization across the country of having a position that specializes just in safety. We're probably not there yet, in my opinion, though there's probably going to be a day sooner rather than later that we're there. We think that this is a very reasonable step in that direction, where we can both get somebody with a ton of experience and expertise while also doing some cost sharing with the city, which we're incredibly grateful for, to be able to split the cost with the city of Papillion. So I'm probably not the best person to answer any questions, but I just wanted to throw that out there that I firmly support it, and appreciate again the chief being here, and Officer Bamer, you know I love you. Thanks for being here.
I mean, for everyone involved, thanks for putting it together. And no, it's not an easy thing to do, and you need to get 2 government entities on the same page, timing-wise, budget-wise, process-wise. So I know it's been a long process, but thanks for getting it to this point. Couple questions I have, and I know we've talked through them. Some last we've talked have been unknowns. I don't know if they've been figured out yet. So if district's paying half, I was just wondering, what's the hiring process going to be? Is the district going to be involved in the hiring process and any like performance review process? Or what is that? going to look like?
I know from the hiring perspective, that was one of the things that we brought to the table during the conversation. And the response from Papillion Police Department was absolutely, we expect you to be involved in that process.
Yeah, I would echo, to what degree we could allow that, certainly. I think that there's value, again, as I noted, we have great partnership, and so it's something I would appreciate having some input. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the appointing authority is the city administrator, and when we've come together, we make a recommendation, but I think there's value in having your involvement. As far as performance evaluations, I think to some degree that's also warranted. We're moving to kind of a new eval system within our department, a digitally based one. And I think reaching out to the lieutenant certainly could reach out from the sergeant perspective on how the principals and some of those stakeholders feel about where the process is going or the program's going, or is it meeting the needs? So I think we could certainly open to working how that looks.
Perfect. And I know one of the main benefits that we've talked through was just the coverage of when an SRO is not able to be at their designated building for the day. Maybe it's better for the chief. I don't know if we have a number of like how many days, like last year in our buildings, we didn't have an SRO in the days that we would have expected one because for whatever reason they weren't there. But can you talk through just the difficulty of how it is right now of trying to fill when an SRO is out sick or they've got other training or other duties in those when they can't be in the schools?
Yeah, that is something that we do struggle with on occasion. Just full disclosure, the sergeant position would be eligible or available at times to backfill those vacancies, those vacant positions. In agreement with Dr. Rickley and the school district, we generally try to make the high schools the priority. That's generally, statistics show that's where the biggest threat for problems is going to occur. So we've moved the junior high SROs, for instance, if we're going to have an absence, whether because of an injury or training or any other number of things, then we'll move the junior high SR up there. We've also gone so far as to post overtime. In fact, I think we have overtime posted for either the end of this week or next week, where we're going to have a couple vacancies. And so we're going to ask an officer, pay the overtime. That's something that we absorb and have them be at that school, because again, we feel that strongly about that presence.
Perfect. And then one last question. Do we know where the person will be like where will they be day to day yet?
We've talked about that. Initially, we had proposed, just full disclosure, about maybe putting them in an office at maybe the ideal school, but I know that there isn't necessarily room for that. But we also felt very strongly, since they would be working under Lieutenant Sharp, that there was value in having them located within the police department so that they could have those meetings and have that relationship expand. But they would also obviously be out in the field, if you will. So we would expect them to visit their SROs, visit the schools, even go so far as to visit with the principals of the grade schools, which quite frankly right now doesn't really happen. And again, ultimately, just providing one good point of contact, and then Lieutenant Sharp as the supervisor serving as that secondary point of contact. And then additionally, we see a lot of value with liaisoning with like Bellevue's SRO staff and sergeant, as well as the SRO from La Vista. Maybe that incorporates some meetings. Maybe it involves a meeting with the board member or two, or somebody from the district. But we see that as real possibilities with this as well.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Chief.
I had a couple of, first of all, we appreciate the SROs in our buildings. They are 100% valued and needed and appreciated because they do mentor our students and have a great impact on their, how we value just the police department altogether. So that's a 50-50 cost. Who is responsible? So the reporting structure goes first to the supervisor at the department?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Do the SROs in the building report to the principal in that building, or do they report to?
Well, and that 50-50 is just keeping in line with what we've been doing now for many years. I don't even know how long it's been. I think it goes back to the 90s, I believe, with the first one up at Monarchs. So it would be keeping within that proposal that has expanded over time, as obviously we've added officers and added schools. Right now, they report to the Lieutenant Sharp, and obviously they've reported to Sergeant Payton as well. But that would be the essence of the chain of command. But again, we would certainly want to involve the sergeant meeting again with principals on whether it's together, whether it's individually, but being available for that contact. But it would still follow our present chain of command as we do with the SROs.
I would say, Ms. Witt, you brought up an important point at the end of your question, and tell me if I'm hitting it, but you mentioned the principals. I think in practice, building principals aren't formally evaluating. I think that responsibility belongs to the police department. But I would say in practice, the 5 SROs we have right now are working very closely with the building principals, with the clear line of distinction being it is not the job of a police officer, of an SRO, to be disciplining students. That responsibility is teachers and administrators. They're there to consult, to help us with safety planning, and certainly if laws have been broken of any time, that's obviously when an SRO is going to step in. But I would say if you would ask any one of our 5 SROs that are currently assigned to our buildings, they're working very closely with administration on problem solving, on preventative issues, on dealing with problem students, and frankly, in some cases, going to the homes of students when it warrants, when there's a suspected issue.
We have done that, and again, I would just echo what Dr. Ickley said. I'm very proud of our SROs, our 4 currently. They liaison with their respective staffs very well. And again, even the junior high SROs who may come up and work at high school, they've gotten to know their respective staff, of that school as well. So I couldn't be more happy with how they interact with the current principals. It's definitely a team effort, as Officer Bramer, who did it for quite some time, can tell you. It doesn't work without that cooperation with not just the head principal, but all of the principals for all the grades, because issues are at every level, every grade, and it's not an easy job. School resource officer wears a lot of hats, and
Yes,
we've
they
got
do.
some good ones, and I appreciate what they do, and I appreciate the relationship that they have with their respective schools.
Yeah, when I've been in the buildings, it's obvious that they're just part of the family in every building that they're within. Other than that, I think that the hiring, to have some district participation to make sure that culture fit is there. Not that there wouldn't be, but I think it helps to show that the district is participating in that. So thank you very much.
And I think, expanding into the elementary, I know that'll be limited because just of the amount that you have, but just to be a face there, to start to build those relationships, and to reinforce the safety aspect, being able to do that, I think is a great step as well.
Well, I think what it does is it also gives those road patrol officers a center point of contact as well, because let's face it, they're always interacting with students and parents and households just through the normal course of their duties. And right now, it's not always easy to get to the right person, or you're not sure which school they belong to. But if you have a school issue or an issue related to a school-aged child, very easily you can push that off to the SRO sergeant, or even call them after hours. And so I think there's some value there, or there would be value there. And I say moreover, just, again, creating those new relationships with those, again, you're right. I think the thing that surprised me the most when I delved into this, and we also received from Bellevue, help from Bellevue that has an SRO sergeant, and the list of duties is just endless. I was pretty amazed at, initially you go into this with just some point of contact and backfilling, but there's just so much more that can be done with this, and there's just it's endless, the possibilities that this could take and the benefit that it could provide. So there's a lot that can be done with it.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
look forward to next week, next meeting, we'll be finishing this project.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Dr. B.
Next on our discussion and information items is legislative update by Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Ms. Witt. Good evening, everybody. The legislature is, as Dr. Rickley said, is about a third of the way through, and there's been some interesting bills come through hearings and some that have made it to the floor at this point. And one of those today that I'll kind of bring up is LB 31, which is that surveillance monitoring with technology bill from Senator Conrad. It was on the floor today. And in essence is probably not going to make it. She lost an amendment today, 27-14. There was another amendment by Holcroft, but my guess is they probably don't bring this bill back, which is probably a good thing because it would have created a lot of unfunded work out of a lot of school districts. And, I think technology and surveillance and monitoring are done in good faith by our staff and what we use it for. And I think that was maybe the concern of Conrad, as it was being used inappropriately in some districts. But we use it definitely for the safety of our, preventative safety for of our students and staff. So glad to see that one more than likely go down. 692 and 424 are more caps on property tax bills that we fought off for the last few years. You know, that was a negotiation with the governor a few years back when he's first year to give some flexibility with that 3% cap. And each year we find us kind of bringing and rehashing some of those 3% hard cap bills that really limit districts like ours that, you know, most of the time we're under that 3% revenue limit. And when we do have to open a school or we need more for because of inflation or whatever it may be, the local decision is made best at the board to go exceed that 3% cap. So we haven't done that yet. In the 2 years that's been in, we haven't exceeded that 3% cap because of, and it's a total revenue cap, not just property taxes. So I know we've talked about for next year having to do that because of inflation and paying salaries. So that's a big deal for us. So 692, 424 are probably two of the bigger ones out there with Merman and Anderson. 692 was heard already in a hearing. 424 is a hearing this week. So I plan on going down tomorrow and meeting with Tim Gay from Catalyst and spending some time with some senators on both of those bills for sure prior to that hearing on Thursday. LB 714 is Senator Clements with motor vehicles. This is another one to watch finance-wise. Take down our portion of the motor vehicle tax from 60 to 37%. That's quite a bit of money, and you know, I think they're finding out that a little bit as they delve in and look at the information a little more closely. For example, in our annual financial report of 23-24, we received just over $7.8 million from that fund. Under the new law, you know, we'd get 1.8 million less with really no way to make that up. So, you know, I think it's a bill that needs to be explored more on how that can be shifted in funding if they're going to do some things like that to school districts. At this point, the hearing on that one is March 4th next week. So we'll definitely have a say in that one as far as, you know, with some senators. You know, a lot of times on these bills, we may do written testimony and talk to the senators, you know, at their office or in the lobby area versus going out on the hearing unless we feel really strongly about a bill and you guys have given us the green light to do that. There are a few more private school funding bills, charter school type things coming out. The ones probably that are seeing the light of day here in a hearing is 624, Dover, 131, also with Sorrentino. They had a hearing today on 624 down there, and 131 with Sorrentino's is Thursday. We'll see if they gain any ground. I guess at this point, with the way the votes went in November, that they may not have the appetite as a whole to put this through a committee or get it on the floor and give it much of a chance, but we'll wait and see how those work out for the hearings this week. Another one of concern is the LB 135 with Holdcroft. And I know you guys are aware of most of these bills that I'm bringing up, but just to bring it out to everybody to discuss in an open meeting. Holdcroft has got a bond bill and override and levy bill. It's all in one with 135. So basically they want to say in odd years, which are primaries and general elections, are the only times you can have an override or a bond. So it's every other year type thinking, whether that be a primary or general election. For us, probably not a huge deal from a standpoint that I think we pre-plan pretty well about when we want to have a bond and can time that out. You know, sometimes you get in heavy growth modes where maybe the interest rates start going down and people are buying houses like crazy, and then you don't have time to pre-plan and get ahead of that growth. So I've seen that in Arizona. As a matter of fact, when you get heavy growth, you can't get in front of it with a bill like this. So, I don't think it's a good bill from that reason. I think Annette brought up in our case, in our district, and we talk about it when we did our survey. I mean, we'd probably do better in the general and primary elections than having a special election for a bond, according to our survey data. So probably not a huge deal for us, but it's still not a good bill in case things would change economically and things for us to have to move fast on.
And on that one, I mean, you look at, we were fortunate enough to have all the community support for our last bond, but you look at some of our neighboring districts, Bennington's going out for their third. If they're only able to, I mean, it'd be a 6-year process to get to that third vote, which, yeah, with a district growing as fast as that, that's just way too long to wait. We also talked through, if all the districts at the same time are going out for a bond, what does that do for the prices of everything? If, we're not able to stagger it, if we're all competing with contractors at the exact same time when those bonds pass. So, yeah, hopefully the senators hear some of those arguments as.
Two great points,
yeah.
Marcus, and, appreciate, and Marcus is on the legislative committee for the Nebraska Association of School Boards, so he's got some things to add throughout. Anything that I don't bring up too, and you've got information on, please bring up tonight too. So great, yeah, those are two. They got a lot of construction people even talking to senators at this point on those items there, because if everybody goes out at the same time, the construction companies are, trying to get work or whatever it may be, and it's not spread out like it normally is with the way we do it now. So good point. Another one to watch is LB 140, cell phone use. Senator Sanders, I think this is a good intent bill. I think they're hearing from a lot of districts throughout the state and parents that they're frustrated with their kids using phones and teachers for that matter in the classroom during the classroom day. The problem I see with this bill, and please add in anybody, is the way it's written right now is it bans it on school campus basically, and that's probably not good for our parents. When they're trying to pick up kids or they're staying after school for activities. The way the bill's written now, and I expect to see some amendments to try to fix some of that because I think that's come to their attention that that's not a good thing. But I think this one's pretty serious about trying to get some sort of model policy that districts can work with their communities to fix locally, which is a good way to do it in my opinion, instead of just coming out with a blanket policy saying this and this. That in the end, this will probably be a good thing for school districts, is my opinion. Because the cell phones in the classroom are a disruptor, no doubt about it. And we've got policies on our campuses now that I think in the last couple of years have kind of curtailed a lot of the problems you see with cell phones, and our principals and the board have done a good job of staying proactive with that. But there are districts out there that, haven't moved in that direction. And they're having a lot of problems with cell phones on campus. And those are just the ones I wanted to bring up today that we're tracking. I know there are dozens of others out there that we're tracking that are yet to see a hearing even. But I'd open the floor at this point to anybody else that wants to bring up any other bills or has questions on the bills that we covered.
Do you have anything from the?
There are two bills that I've been tracking, and I don't know where they are. I don't know if you don't know where
Okay.
they are too, but it's LB 411, which is the teacher retention bonus. Do you know where that's at? And then also LB 282, which would reimburse teachers for school supplies that they've bought.
Yes. So let me look up 411 and make sure I got that one correct. Here in my packet.
And
My
then-
worry for 282, as I look through this, is reimbursing school supplies for teachers. Great bill. I just worry with the debt that they have right now, with the $432 million shortfall, that any bill with any kind of needed money right now is going to be tough. But it's a great bill, I think, trying to get teachers reimbursed for supplies that they buy on the side.
I
So that's a
think
good
the
one to track
amount
here in
was,
the future.
I don't have the bill in front of me, but I think it was approximately $300 per year.
250?
250, thank you, Mr. Madler. So, I mean, just doing the math, somebody can do it for me. There's approximately 30,000 public school teachers across Nebraska, so 30,000 times $250 a year. It's a great idea. I just worry that the fiscal note will sink it.
And logistically, it all goes through NDE, teachers having to submit paperwork to get the reimbursement, so NDE is going to have to hire on additional staff. Yeah. So we'll see, but we'll see where that goes.
So that teacher retention, it's by Senator Dungan out of Lincoln. It does, I think this one adds, if I remember correctly, and adds a high-need retention grant to the existing law, because there are, teachers that are able to get reimbursed in years 1 through 6 at a school, 7th through 15th, and then 16th to full-time employment teaching in Nebraska. So each year of full-time teaching at a Nebraska school, retention thereafter of $4,000 per school year if they come up. I mean, this is pretty aggressive money. Again, you worry about the state coming up short in revenue to have something like this passed, but it's definitely one we would continue to support. And I remember we supported that one in 2023 as well that did get passed when they had some money available to give some teacher retention grants out there, which a lot of our teachers take advantage of.
Has there been any action yet on any that deal with behavior, specifically the repealing the suspension, allowing K-2 kids to be suspended, repealing that, or?
There is a bill out there that would allow that to happen. We've been told it's probably not going to happen this year. Doesn't mean it won't, but it hasn't come up for hearing yet either, so we'll keep an eye on that.
And I think the board is well aware of this. As a general rule, the later the longer it takes to make a hearing or to get kicked out of committee hearing, the less likely it is to pass. Usually the higher priority bills get heard first and get kicked out of committee first. So again, Brett's right. Doesn't mean it won't go, but I think with each passing week, it probably gets a little less likely that some of these other bills make it to the floor.
Great questions.
I appreciate the update. Is there anywhere, and I know you said you're going to meet with Mr. Gay tomorrow, is there anywhere, I guess after meeting with him, maybe let us know if there's any specific bills that he thinks would be good for us to get in contact with any of the senators that, I think we have 5 that touch the district, that he thinks would be good for us to have a conversation with, so just keep us posted.
Yeah, that'll be great for you guys to get involved. I think, the more they kind of move in and then we get an idea if they got legs going on, and if it's a bill that's really going to hurt our district, I think that's when we should be reaching out for you guys to come down and have some conversations with Tim, with with some senators out in the lobby to make sure they understand how it affects our district. And if you guys, and like we've always said, if you guys see one coming up in a hearing that you feel you want to testify in, we can make that available for you as well. I think it's big to stay in front of the bigger bills that could really do some damage to our district. And you guys having a voice in that is really important, that they hear from an elected official instead of me or Dr. Rickley down there. So if we ever think there's a need, we'll reach out to you too and say, okay, here's a bill that has legs that we think, here's what it'll do to our district financially or curriculum-wise. And you can come down and we can pull out those senators that are in our area and even on the education committee to have a conversation with. So if you see any of those that you feel are important too, we try to review these. That's the problem with subcommittees. You only get to meet once a month, and we can meet a little bit more if we get some bills that come up, and we can have a special meeting. But kind of going through those in depth a little bit make a difference to what we want to oppose or support down there.
Yeah, and if any board members want to submit their voice online before a hearing, I think they can do it the night before, by the night before the hearing, or for any board member or anyone in the public. It's super easy and quick to do online. You don't really even have to write much, but you could even just put, whether you are for or against whatever they're going to be talking about in the hearing. And, you know, I don't know how much of those comments will get read by the committee, but I know, at least I've seen this year, they will announce how many people have commented, you know, in favor or against in those hearings for every bill that they are discussing. So if you want your voices heard, or anyone that matter, they make it pretty easy to do online now.
Yeah. And, you know, just keep in mind our priorities that we look at as a district. That helps us kind of give that umbrella of whether we support or oppose or stay neutral. You know, that local control is big, you know, and state funding to lower property taxes is big for this district. Teacher retention, so we'd support that bill, of course, that you brought up. So we kind of use that umbrella to help justify how we go about working with senators.
Excellent conversation. Thank you. Item 5, we have no public comment for not on the agenda tonight. On Section 6, future board calendar, we have 3 liaison lunches coming up. On February 25th, Ms. Wood will be at Portal. On March 5th, Ms. Butler will be at Prairie Queen. And on March 7th, Mr. Madler will be at Golden Hills. There is no school during the week of March 10 through 14 for spring break. And our next meeting is on March 10th in this room at 6 p.m. Seeing no further business, we will adjourn the meeting at 7 o'clock.
Oh, you couldn't have done that any